first things first, okay, we're going to be learning about brush control, saturation control, color value scales, which are kind of the same thing, but we're going to use a little more control here. We're going to kind of step it up. And then blending color together, which is sort of a different thing. Now, one thing I want to make sure we go over is that this is going to be watercolor. So this is going to be a wet sheet of paper. You've got a few options. One that I do is separate this paper, if I can get mine separated, from the rest by just kind of setting the rest of the packet aside, okay? Another thing you can do is undo the staple and pull this one out of the packet if you want, because you're going to need to kind of set it aside to dry after we're done. And the last thing you can do is just put a paper towel between the pages, and usually that helps, okay? But you don't want to get like your whole next sheet all wet and wrinkly, okay? So generally, you know, this isn't watercolor paper here that we're working on, and when we do our projects, we'll be working on a little bit, you know, better quality image. So, you know, I'm sorry, a better quality paper. So this one's just kind of thin. You want to make sure you take some sort of precaution. So here's an example of a watercolor set. You might have something like this. This one's brand new, and it was like, I think, I don't know, $1.50, $2. This is Praying, which is, you know, well-known art brand. Nothing too serious. We've got 8 watercolors. I know some of you have already let me know, like, hey, Mr. you're going with 20 or whatever. Like, that's great for you. But you're going to need to just plan on, you know, mixing colors and doing things. We're going to be using the top here. So we're going to use that to mix colors and do different things, okay? Another thing you'll notice is that I've got a paper towel here and a cup of water, okay? So you're going to want to kind of set yourself up. You should have a brush in your set that looks something like this, and you want to kind of just work in a way, set yourself up so that you're comfortable. And I'm going to try and do this where I can kind of squeeze everything into one scene here for you guys so you don't miss anything, okay? So first thing we're going to do is get a color started, and you can use like a glass or a little cup, something like this, but I like to have a paper towel here so that I can drain some of the water off of my brush if I need to. But right now what you're going to do is use you know, the water on your brush to kind of get a color going. And we're going to just practice brush control. So you can kind of just dab in this color. You can see my nice red paint. And we're going to be working to stay inside the line. So when you're working on brush control, one thing you always want to do is practice pulling the brush in the direction that you want to paint. Okay, so never push the brush. It's kind of like a broom. Okay, it doesn't know which direction you want it to go. So the minute you start kind of waving your lines or doing something where you're pushing the brush, it's not going to know what direction you want it to go, okay? So you always want to pull the brush in the direction that you want. The other thing you'll notice I'm doing is kind of working in from inside the shape and kind of creeping my way to the edge, okay? So you don't want to get too close to the edge. It's not like you can just magically outline it. You kind of have to work your way through, okay? You can use the same color for these. If you love coloring, you really want to switch it up and have fun, you can use different colors. But I want you to practice these different kinds of a shape. And what I'm looking for here is neatness, okay? So you can see I'm just kind of painting along. If you go outside the lines a little bit, that's fine. But we're practicing here this brush control of really staying inside of the lines, trying to work our way through. Okay, I'm going to grab a little more color. When you see that color kind of running out, just go grab some more. Okay, last shape. And you can kind of even it out too, like I go over this one last time and just make it nice and even. All right. Last shape here is sort of like a bubble. And again, this one's probably the toughest because it's all about pulling that brush. And you can see I'm going to kind of change the direction of my brush too. Okay. So it's not only like moving your hand, you can change the direction of your brush. All right. Some of the way that, you know, you kind of handle it is like riding a bike, right? Like you don't want to get too frustrated with yourself if it feels strange for some reason. Know that this is something that kind of comes with practice. When you're inside the form or the shape, you can kind of just work your way in there, kind of fill it up, work a little more quickly. And for you guys, take your time on this. Press pause and just take a few minutes to paint your way through this. Okay, so there we are. We're looking for neatness. Mine's really shining for you guys, but you can kind of see it there if I raise my paper, and obviously it'll dry over time. Okay, this next one, you can use the color that you were using. What we're going to do is try to just get some different looks from one color. Okay, so the first one says pure color. You're just going to paint in this blank rectangle. So we want this to look pretty close to the color that we have in our spot, in our set. Okay, the next square says we're going to mix half with water. Now, the question is, where do I do this? You've got a few options. You can use the lid of your palette. You can also use a separate like dish or a plate. Watercolor is going to wash off, but I would make sure it's a white plate so you can see the colors that you're working with. I'm just going to go ahead over here and make a little spot and mix this with water. Okay, and do half and half. I'm going to go ahead and paint this in here. Okay. Again, just working on neatness. Use this whole page to practice neatness and try to, really try to stay inside of the lines. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, be creative, think outside of the box. Yeah, but when it comes to brush control, if you're painting a picture of something, you need to have that control. Okay. So you can see the color difference there. The last one says mostly water with just a little bit of color. Now what you'll notice when I do this, I'm just going to grab some more water here, is that this color is going to look very faint. I'm going to just drain some of this, push this around. So the difference that we're seeing here is the ratio between the color pigment and the water within this colorful solution that we're putting down on our paper. So the first one is just mostly color with just enough water to get it going. Okay. The middle one is about half and half, and then we have one that's really light. So this is kind of what you're going for. And again, you can switch up the color. Like if you want to do, blue down here and you did red up here, that's fine. But these should all be the same color where you're just manipulating the amount of water that's in there. Okay. Same thing here, but now we're going to gradually switch. Okay. So you can see it says we're going to use the same color, or you can switch, but we're going to add the pure color at one end, and then we're going to gradually blend it by adding more water as you work to the right. So we're going to be working in this direction. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and use red again, but you can switch it up if you want to use a different color. Again, I'm going to try and stay inside of this. Okay, so I'm kind of looking for you guys too to take your time with this a little bit. Okay, so I've got a good chunk that's the pure color. I'm going to just grab a little bit of water here and start bringing this down. So you can see if you do this the right way, you shouldn't need to go get more color. Okay, now when it comes down here, generally you want to clean your brush and just pull a little bit of this. So like this is where your paper towel comes in and you can kind of clean it. Okay, the other thing you can do is I encourage you to push your brush at the bottom. What that does is it spreads those bristles out. Okay, it gets all the color from the inside of the brush. If you just kind of swing it around like this, then you're not cleaning inside of the brush. Okay, so now I'm going to just grab a little more water while this is still wet. Hopefully it moves. Okay, it's moving a little bit, but I'm going to have to get some color here. I waited too long, so you got to kind of do this in one foul swoop. Do you guys see that sharp edge where I stopped? So lesson learned, when you're doing a color blend, you always want to go all the way through from dark to light. Don't stop and wait for it to set up in your paper, because now you can see I'm stuck. I'm stuck with a little border there. But overall, it looks pretty good. You'll also notice that the more water you use, the more it's going to want to spread on your paper. So if this starts to go outside of the lines a little, it's fine. Know that I just know that you're trying to use, more water, and it'll dry. Okay. So this next one's going to be similar, but what we're going to do is choose two colors that we're going to blend together. So for me, I'm going to start with my red because I already have it going. And I'm not going to go as far this time. I'm going to kind of stop in here. Okay. I'm going to clean my brush. You never want to contaminate your colors. Think of these colors in your set as your store, right? This is your art store, your paint store. This part you can mix colors, okay, or get another dish, like I said, like a glass dish or something where you can see what you're doing. All right, but I never want to contaminate. I never want to take a dirty brush and put it into another color because then I don't have what I need. Okay, so now I'm taking yellow. I'm just going to bring this down. All right, and I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to clean it. I'm going to start bringing this down. Okay, just a little bit. I'm going to clean my brush again. Again, I don't want to pull that yellow paint. I don't want to contaminate it just yet. Okay, what we're going for here is trying to get a mixture of colors. And you can see this is happening. I'm going to just grab a little more yellow. Make this just a little bit stronger. Okay. And you can see my mixtures there. I'm getting some nice orange. If you get this weird pooling happening, it's just the nature of the paper. This paper's going to start to buckle because it's so thin. But this is just practice. And what I'm going to be looking for really is just one color, another color. Okay, and you can really choose any colors you want. I would stay away from black. It's really strong. But just choose two colors, and I'm going to be looking for a mixture of the two. Okay, so if you choose like a complementary color, like red and green, for example, you know, you might not get something as pretty as you want, but it'll mix. I'll see a mixture. So the key here is water, guys. If you're not getting that mixture, add more water. I'm going to do one more here, and I'll just start up some other colors really quick. We'll do green. And again, with these color blends, you kind of want to work quickly. Remember that your color is going to set up pretty quickly. So the faster you work, the nicer your blends will be. Just going to push these together here. You can see I'm cleaning my brush in between. And I'm going to get a nice color blend. I'm going to pull some color out of this brush and just work to blend these together now. Okay, so you can see I'm getting a nice series of blue greens in there. Okay, so I've got my blue, got my greens. I'm going to add a little more green to this part here. Okay. So overall, just to review, I'm looking for inside the lines, pure color mixed with water halfway, so it should be a little lighter, lightest version with a lot of water and a little bit of color. Here, you can use the same color or you can switch it up, but one color, bringing it down, using more and more water gradually. When this dries, it will be nice and white again. Okay, so it's just dark because it's sitting on a dark desk. These last sets are one color and one color at each end. Remember to work rather quickly. Time is of the essence. The more it sits in your paper, the more it's going to set up. You're going to use water to bring them both towards each other and overlap a little bit to capture a nice color mixture here. Okay, as far as cleanup goes, guys, I always like to wash and dry my brush. I use my paper towel that I used for my brush and I wipe the lid of my palette clean. Okay, you don't want to tip this over and have wet stuff on here. Okay, I will often, if I can, leave this out to dry open, but if you have to shut it because you're worried about pets or siblings or whatever, you can just try to keep it level. If you tip this, some of that water could tip and make a mess. Okay, so look at that, brand new, just like new. Okay, leave this to sit out to dry. Alrighty, so that is your activity 3.1.